back in this webinar series from EIPM, trying to share with you some of the findings from the Observatory of Value Creation, some of the leading practices that we are every day still discovering within the procurement world. We've got a fantastic audience covering a lot of countries, European countries, but also North America, South America. After having a session this morning with more people from the east side of the world, so it's always really impressive to see, people coming from all these different parts of the world for these webinars. My name is Hervé Legendre. I'm heading the research activities at EIPM. I've created a number of years ago the Observatory of Value Creation, which is dedicated to study innovation, new practices that we're discovering in the field of procurement. And today I wanted to share with you on a topic that we hear a lot of people mentioning: our contribution to top line, contribution to revenue, contribution to growth. So I really wanted to look deeper into this topic. And in fact, back in 2019, we had a CPO roundtable that was really addressing this theme. And we've been working for half a day with a group of 17 CPO on understanding what are the opportunities to contribute to top line revenue from a procurement standpoint. So I will be sharing some of the frameworks that we've been building in this kind of action research approach, and also some of the recommendations that have been emerging out of this workshop. My intent is simply to show you that it's possible. This is not something exceptional. This is something that can be developed within a procurement as one of the contribution to create value for the business. So talking about creating value for the business, many years ago, we built this framework, the Surfboard of innovation, as a mean to describe the different way we can contribute to innovation in procurement, whether by being very strong in terms of risk management, we can make our client very loyal, whether by increasing continuously efficiency, we can gain some competitive advantage and improve our TCO, whether by involving supplier in developing innovative product, we can contribute to generate value, or we can create customer satisfaction by impacting on the customer experience, their experience of the company's process and all the interaction they have with your company. We buy many of the service, many of the teams that are in fact interacting with the final user of the service of a company. And then an extra element is already about market, how we contribute to revenue, how do we get access to a new market by working with supplier, by selling to supplier. And this was already something that we had into this framework. And then there's impact on the brands and game changer, which is very often a combination of other surfboard that are allowing to bring things forward in terms of value created for company. So today we are going to do a deep dive in this one about market and revenue. The idea is really to get more understanding of what are the different business models that can be developed in order to have this type of impact. I'll come back on this slide at the end, but what are the benefits? I think that can already start to help frame, if you want, the intent and what I want to share with you. And the first one is fairly obvious from a financial point of view. This is a contribution in terms of sales and revenue to the corporation. From the internal stakeholder perspective, I think of the sales team, this is about visibility. This is about developing the recognition of the procurement team and easing the work that we can have with teams from sales, marketing, on other project, for instance. From the buyer standpoint, from the employee standpoint, and this got to be something that is going to contribute to develop a talent, to motivate individuals, sometimes give opportunity to some of these talent to be more visible and export themselves as a good ambassador from the procurement function. It's also an opportunity to sharpen some of the soft skills and the understanding of the markets and the business acumen. For the supplier, we're not seeing this from the workshop we had back in 2019 as a, something where it was just about extracting revenue from them. It's got to be something that's attractive, where there's mutual knowledge, stronger relationship, and a growing together type of logic with some customer supplier loyalty that's coming out of such initiative. Okay, so a business model today. I'm going to define a business model with two simple terms. To whom do we sell and what do we sell? So I'll use that as a way of describing different types of impact, different types of business model we can gain, use within a procurement context. And you see here a number of opportunity in terms of to whom we are selling something. So we could be selling to our supplier. We could be selling to the client of our suppliers. We could still be selling to our client, something different probably. We can be selling to competitors. That can be an opportunity sometime. We'll come back on this. And industry peer, meaning that our company might not be operating on every single in every single country, geographies, and maybe we would be supporting an industry peer, a company very similar to ours in specific regions of the world. Now, what is it that we sell? We can sell our own company offerings, our product and services. We can sell the supplier offering, their product, their services, or we can sell something where we've combined, bring together a joint offering. So you see where I'm going. I've got a number of potential clients here. I've got a number of offering here, and we can look at some of them, how they combine together. And basically, we've identified 7 business models. There might be more. I think we are covering fairly nicely, most of the cases I've ever seen and discussed together with some people, but maybe there's more. So the first one, fairly basic, simple. This is what we call 360-degree selling. This is about selling your own product to your suppliers. So there's a number of examples that we've seen over the years in terms of selling your company offering to a supplier. In some circumstances, this was fairly focused. I remember a company that was active in the water pump industry. They were going to their suppliers who had the big factories, and they said, you know what, if you want, we can offer to you, as part of our supplier development effort, an efficiency diagnostic and how you could be saving waters from your site. And from this, there was very often opportunities, and most of the time, and all the time, in fact, opportunities to recommend some of the solutions from the company in order to optimize consumption of water on the supplier side, who were now becoming a client. We've seen also some programs that were fairly systematic, that have been focusing very much on motivating the supplier. There was a cosmetic company that was offering to the employee of the supplier a discount in order to access their product. And interestingly, this was something noticed by the sales team of this organization, that they saw in their figures some of the usage of this discount rate, and that was contributing to the sales of the business. So very clearly here, not simply a way of gaining revenue, but presenting the product of the company, explaining what were the contribution from people on the shop floor to the success to the product of the cosmetic company. So something that was really much beyond simply a focus on the revenue, but a way to engage differently people on the supplier side. There's also Moët Hennessy, Dominique Levigo has been, providing quite a number of testimonies on the topic. He's working for Moët Hennessy, which is a wine and spirit company, and buyers within his organization every year they are expected to have one contribution to sales. So basically, they need to interact with the sales team in order to search for opportunities and contribute to what's really important in this type of companies in terms of sales activation. But really a systematic process that's happening every year. And there could be more occasional ad hoc circumstances. We had in a workshop on the topic a company where they were producing and developing a bio product, and one of them was a biofuel. And they actually, through the purchasing team, they contacted some of the transportation company that was working for this business, and they asked them to become a test bed, to become some of the first to test and the biofuel that was provided by this company. So very interesting to be able to reach access to the market when we're talking about innovation. So this one is 360-degree selling, and this is really focusing on selling your product to your supplier. Now let's move to the second one, which is about selling your company offering, so still your own product, but to the clients of the supplier. And we call that a reach-through business model. One of the case was an aerospace company that has been at some point developing a product, and they discovered after a while, when they had launched the product in Europe, that the best way to go and access opportunity in the US was actually to sell the product under the brand of one of the supplier that had played a critical role into the development of this product, and that said, if you want, we can be the representative, and we can be helping with access to market in the US. Huh? So this was a way of working with a supplier to gain access to the client of the supplier. And this was not the initial intent. Huh? This is something that came afterward. We also have the case of a food company that has been creating opportunities for the sales team to position their product for some of their event management company, some of the catering organization that were supporting their event, and who were offering to other clients some of their products. So they managed to be on the list, on the menu of some of these companies that were initially supplier of the organization. So that's the reach-through, and now we are moving into the joint offering that is now sold to the client of your company. This is something that you find quite regularly in some of the digital sector, where you might be offering some digital technology, some services, but also some cloud solutions, standard software that are all together embedded in a joint offering that goes to a client. So in many circumstances, your company will want to be on the forefront of this relationship and to just use the other company as a supplier. But let's say you're not in the best position for a certain project, for a certain bid, and you realize that leveraging your brand and the brand of one of your supplier could make your case more strong, more interesting, a little bit more original maybe than some of the other company. So you can build on this combination, making a joint offering into some of the clients. So I've seen that in some of the digital companies that are running projects in order to deploy some digital tools inside their client. But I've seen also in the telecom sector some of these business model that were described as selling with, so selling with a supplier to a client. The next one is fairly similar, but on the other side, this is about a joint offering to the client of your supplier. So maybe one time the company will be best to bring the supplier as a joint to an existing client for a new bid, for instance, a new proposal. But then for another one, this could go to the client of the supplier. Again, I've seen this as in the telecom sector as one of the means to go to some vertical business, to some of the specific industry application to be offered to the client. Okay, great. Now let's move to the next case, the next business model, which is about competition. Okay, so why would you want to sell to your competitors? Well, this is all about scaling a standard. Okay, so you have some of the components that require investment, innovation for the future. However, this is not something that's going to bring you a distinctive value on the market. And it would be much better to be able to grow a big market for this innovation and making sure it's going to be adopted across the industry as a standard. So one of the, and this is typically a joint offering. So one of the case here that I've been documenting in an article a couple of, no, quite some years ago, 5 years ago, was the case in the water industry of Suez when they wanted to develop smart meters. They decided to work with a data management company and a meter company. And they've built their own protocol of communication for the smart meters and a standard offering that was available to everyone on the market. They were putting their R&D team together in order to develop these, but they were also putting their sales team together in order to put this on the market and make revenue out of it. And the water company was, in fact, getting royalties from these deals whenever this was sold to some of their competitors. Similar model I've seen recently in the automotive industry. Some of the companies that were selling as a tier one supplier in automotive plastic component had been working with a new business in order to develop bioplastic. And they had a joint patent that was created out of this situation. And the idea wasn't to block the possibility of selling that to the automotive sector or other sector, but anything that would be sold to the automotive sector through the supplier, this would create a royalty that would be bringing some of the revenue to the automotive company. So that's a mean of not blocking supplier to use their innovation in some markets, but also to generate revenue out of this situation. So scaling a standard, huh? uh, aiming for something that's going to be used by many on the market. Price will go down. There will be less likely a regular change of technology. And in this case, they've been working together for at least 15 years, multiple generation of meters that were brought together. Next case is about situations where you can have the supplier offering. And let's say you're putting together equipment for your clients, and some of the equipment are bought to some supplier, and there's an option to sell on top of the existing solution. For instance, some training to use and to be able to operate some of the equipment that you're selling. So this is an opportunity to bundle and resell to your client some of the added value that your supplier can propose and suggest. So that's one way of bringing on top very often of a product some services that contribute to generate revenue for the corporation. Okay, great. We are moving on. Next one is the one that I call expand. So this one is really about a situation where you have industry peers. So let me take the example of an airport. So Aéroport de Paris is a company that's offering, managing a number of airports across France. And they also have a portfolio of offerings for other airports across the world. And this is typically airport in countries where they don't have any activities, but because of their expertise, because of the experience they have in a certain country, they're capable of offering a number of services, including procurement services to peer companies, airport in a different country. This is something that you find as well in the field of telecom, where maybe your telecom company is only going to operate in uh, one, two, three, 24 countries for some. And they might have partners in countries where they don't operate, but where they can bring some technical services again, including some procurement service that they provide to what they call their partner market. So this is a case, for instance, of a Vodafone procurement, who a number of years ago got an award, a Peter Krajic Award, that when they had established and secured this type of channel activities, they would have to other telecom companies. So that's it. That's quite a few options. Some of them can look quite similar, quite close. It sometimes depends of the timing of things. But if you start to look at it as a sort of a set of options, you can look to whom you sell, suppliers or their client, your client, industry peers, competitor, and then what is it that you sell. You can start to map some opportunities to contribute to generate revenue. So again, probably there might be some slight variance on some of these business model, but I felt it would be a nice way to map some of these opportunities. So clarifying a little bit this language that we hear about our contribution to top line, our contribution to create something different. And yeah, there are variants. I remember someone who was in HP who was actually buying extra components and was working with supplier to create like some toys with them, and this was sold in some distribution channels, sometimes making more money than the traditional product of the company. Very entrepreneurial spirit at that time, but also a way of having the highest volume in the industry and selling something special. You can't use all the business models all the time. It will depend of your industry sector. It will depend of the focus of the organization. But very often you have opportunity along these different lines to have these types of contribution. So don't believe this is only for others. We all have in our industry, one day or another, some of these. And in some cases, this can be even more systematic, as some of the example I gave you. Additional opportunities might not be purely about revenue, but for instance, the Moitenesi team, and they've been telling their media company that they were looking for opportunities from them to contribute to create value for the business, to generate revenue. And their media company came back to them with opportunities in terms of co-advertising. So would you be interested to have one of your product, a bottle of champagne, in one of the advertising of a luxury car company? So there's a sort of a resonance of the brand, resonance of the product around the luxury. And they also had a so launch event that were organized with the support from them. That was an opportunity to sell a little bit in terms of product, but also to position further their brand. So other example of creating value that are going in the same direction, but that can be interesting way forward in some occasion. So let's go a little bit into what can be done and what are the conditions for success. So when we had this group of a CPO that been reflecting on this situation, so all of them, they had cases to share from their career, where 17 of them where they had this type of initiative on a narrow project or on a very broad scope. It was very different. But some recommendation from them, make it something formal and structured if this is something that needs to be repeated over time. Prepare the stakeholders upfront. The CPO needs to have the discussion with everyone in terms of at the level, at her or his level in the organization, in order to prepare for such an initiative. Then give the program some visibility, create a process, simple tool, track the initiatives as you would do for any other initiative that's contributing to savings or innovation. Share some guidelines, be very clear to the buyers, to the sales team, what will be done, how it will be done, what is the role of everyone into this type of a situation. And one case I mentioned before, they were asking buyers to come with one ID every year and one opportunity, one initiative where they were really involving and creating opportunity for sales. And have some rituals that bring everyone together, where people from sales and purchasing can celebrate some of the success, share the good stories they've been bringing together. Start small, create success story, and scale this type of initiative across. It's something that can take a bit of time to convince everyone. This is part of our job. This is nice to be able to open the door in a different way. This is a good way, to get to better relationship with stakeholder. On the supplier side, it's really important that we have a good understanding of who are the decision makers for this type of situation. If you have a multi-divisional company and you're talking to a supplier in one division, it's very difficult for them to access another division. Be very careful of this situation. So understand the ecosystem on the supplier side. Introduce the concept in a positive way. It's about growing together, developing together, supporting each other, beyond the classic transaction we have. And also, there might be situation where you've got touchy relationship, dependencies. where this might not be, the best target for this type of things. And one of the big recommendation we had from the teams was about no cross negotiation. So this is not about negotiating back and forth as part of one deal, what is sold from one way and what is bought from the other side. Avoid this type of situation. On the internal stakeholder, clear any potential ethical issue up front, or if there's a try to really be very clear about implication in terms of the targets, the rewards of the salespeople, ensure alignment, manage expectations, and don't confuse the roles. This was also a very big point coming from the people that we had. Salespeople, they know how to sell the product, not just to negotiate a price here. And buyers, we're here to open the door to offer some opportunities. So we shouldn't be doing the work of sales. We're here to, create the opportunity for them in many circumstances. Condition for success, again, on the people side, make it visible, explain, ensure that you have a minimum in terms of soft skills to make this going, to keep it going in the right direction. And yeah, celebrate success, recognize and potentially reward some individuals. There was a long conversation back in 2019. Yes, at some point you can start measuring how much is made, but don't put a target on this one. This is something that's for the sales. So, keep things, calculate, aggregate, keep track of everything that's being brought, the good, positive, but communicate on this initiative as this is a team effort. Together with R&D, we've engaged a supplier in developing a new product that's becoming a standard, and we're getting royalties from that with the support from our sales team. So it's not about, purchasing, going out and saying we're making money here, but this is about celebrating the team success, the internal collaboration, the impact in terms of procurement, being welcomed for this kind of initiative will be much stronger. And this will open the door for sure to a different way of interacting with your internal stakeholders. And again, now all that can be encapsulated in finding the right balance between, pushing for making revenue versus, ensuring this is about strengthening relationship, finding new ways of interacting with the people inside the company. Sometimes buyers can be a bit suspicious of why do I need to do this? My job is to buy, not to sell. So why do I spend some time on this? Show them, and this is an opportunity to develop their soft skills, to open the door in a different way, to develop their business acumen. And that can be also an opportunity for them to, by being visible, to export some of the talent. So we are getting the ambassador. So find the balance also with the supplier in terms of the relationship and not simply in terms of the financial revenue. So that's my concluding point. I think I've tried to give you the essence of the work that we've been doing on this topic over the past few years, really trying to, behind the words, to create a sort of a framework that help us to understand what kind of a contribution we can make from that point of view. What do we really mean where we're talking about contributing to growth, contributing to top line, and describing some of the success factors that some of the nicely advanced, I would say, procurement organization will always end up looking at. This is not something that you do the first day of your transformation, but this is definitely something after a few years that you will be considering. I hope that's been useful to you, that has given you some ideas, that has created at least, aha, interesting, maybe something I should be thinking of. Maybe this is something that resonates with something you've done in the past. So, now it's time if you have questions, reactions, if you've done something similar, don't hesitate to share in the chat some of your experience with this before we say goodbye and uh, we maybe talk about future webinars. Any reactions, any feedback, any questions from any of you? Try to be as clear as possible, but maybe there's a reaction, a point, a question, an experience that you would like to share with us. Thank you, Rizwan. Nice to hear this was enlightening to you. And if you have experience, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always looking for something a little bit out of this of the usual, and being able to see some of these uh, practices, trying to bring them together as a series of mini cases. Oh yeah, we've got someone else saying thank you for feeding the portfolio of approaches that might be used to engage with supplier. This is food for brain. Yeah, no, I think it's when we see an opportunity, that's really great. Thank you for Igor. Thank you for also someone else who said this was a fantastic, lots of great points. So we hope to see you next year. There will be more webinar coming. Pretty sure that we will be doing quite some topic related to sustainability and other topic. Again, if you have yourself some topic that you would like us to share and to focus on, don't hesitate. I think this is I see a question about it is tricky. It is tricky to set up royalties with supplier that can create dispute in the future of the relationship. I think that's a very good point. So any kind of shared asset is actually a situation where you need to have a proper governance. And like anything, joint intellectual property, if one of the partner is too greedy, this will create to a situation of dissatisfaction. So what's absolutely essential is to surround yourself with potentially a specialist of IP deals, getting some good understanding of what's possible in terms of an industry, what are the standard figures, and being very clear. And sometimes, in the case of the bioplastic, I was saying, there was no royalties outside of the automotive industry. So the point was not to block the supplier to leverage that technology outside of the sector, for instance, and that was preventing also some of the disputes. But yeah, every time we are too greedy in procurement, we create dispute, and that's the one's no different. Supplier Lean was a great initiative led by GE once, and not just GE. I've been running the Lean program of Light Signal back in '98, and at that time we already had a supplier into the this type of activity. This is more of a incremental innovation, joint improvement, uh, improvement, incremental initiative. And indeed, and one of the very big points I can share with you about a joint lean initiative is to think big. Okay, so very often what I see is teams from two companies, they take a micro process and they try to get something out of it. It's a little bit the idea of the low hanging fruit. So let's pick something easy where there's a little bit of money to be made. But a few years ago, I've been involved in a project with Robert Bosch and BMW. And actually, we built a vision of what could be the relationship with the two companies within 10 years. And from a value stream map and from a management system, the EFQM model, we created uh, we created this perspective of a vision out of which we took quite a number of projects. Oh, I see the name of Larry Bossidi at a light signal, and yeah, I've known Larry Bossidi quite for over a few years during this project, and he was an amazing leader that was really having immense knowledge about what all the factories, were doing across his company. I've got another question. How can best deal with vendor in basis of cost factor? That I don't understand really, Rajesh. Not sure I can come up with something on this one. But don't hesitate to connect on LinkedIn, to send me an email. Very happy always. Innovation is about finding problems. And then when we have problems, we find solution in the ecosystem. And that's how we help you here. That's also when you bring us problem, we're thinking about how we find solution in the ecosystem. So always interested to, get your ideas about how can you scratch your ideas and how can we explain the new trend of breakdown of big companies into smaller ones? Well, I'll really give you my personal view, and this is not an academic study. I think there's been a number of conglomerates that have been established and working very well over the years. And there was a time when if you had 7 or 8 different business, the analyst, whenever you had 5 or 6 that were doing well, if there was one that wasn't doing so well, this wasn't the communication wasn't about the bad news on the one that wasn't doing so well. And I think the importance of the communication to the analyst has been quite stronger and much more focused on some of the negative. And I think this is creating something that has tended to push some of these conglomerates who 20 years ago were in some of the amongst the number one company in the world to rethink their strategy and separate some of their business. But that's my personal view. I don't have any research to back it up. I think that's very much driven. And Larry Bossidi was always saying, the day I'm not speaking with the analyst is the day I'm helping my business to perform better, and I know where I need to be. Do you think integration, vertical, horizontal, will help to create a best fit model, especially in these days? We are seeing a return of the vertical integration. And I think this is very evident in the field of big tech. When you look at the data center of Google, of Facebook, and this is not something they go and purchase to companies like uh, Dell and others. This is actually something that they design. But they have a trick here that's quite interesting, is they're actually picking this logic of standard and making this project open source. So today you have a foundation, the Open Compute Project, and I will release beginning of January an article together with one person from the Open Compute Foundation, Open Compute Project, and uh, together all the engineers from Facebook, from Microsoft, from some of the ODM that exist in this sector, they're developing together some of the technologies that are, and all of the technologies that are going into a data center. And you can go on the internet and access all the drawings. So they benefit from vertical integration by being involved in the design and operating their data center, but having it under an open project where the design can be used by everyone. They really create a standard on the market. They make sure everything is interoperable. They can work together to get the best impact in terms of carbon reductions. and so on and so on. Maybe I should do a webinar on some of these approach in the future. It's really interesting. Maybe not applicable to everything, but we see that for data center, we see that in telecoms these days, and this is moving into next new fields, I'm sure, into the future. So definitely, vertical integration is being reinvented with a touch of open innovation in this sector. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you look back at someone is asking about onshoring, I think that if you look at the how much of the trade, if you take the global GDP, huh, how much of the global trade was international in the past of the global GDP, this has been stagnating since 2009. So basically, we were already in a trend where there was some re-regionalization of some of the business activities in the past. Now, Mohamed, you're asking me about the semiconductor. I think um, we could be talking about this topic for quite some time. There's a lot of, putting pressure on everyone to support with investment into the semiconductor these days. So whenever I'm hearing the crisis will last and there will be for many years, this is a way for some company to call for support from government in order to contribute to build and some of these facilities. At the same time, I think the semiconductor market is a very complex one because you don't have at all the same situation on some of the older technology and the newer technology. So some of the older technology, the investment have been made in the past, and today the price of the components are so low that there is no incentive to build an alternative source of production. So some industries that are using fairly old components will not see a major reshoring of activities in the US or Europe, because there's a need to have some investment in this field. And some of the most recent technologies, there will be more investment into the future. So situation will be very different across different type of a product. And I'm not a complete expert of this, an expert of this industry, but that's an interesting case. Stay close to your supplier, ask them for advice, ask them for their input about how do they see this market evolving. That's quite important. Yeah, I think we need to take the long view and we need to factor some of the geopolitical risk. We need to think more and more with different time horizon. I think the procurement before COVID, we tended to work with this annual horizon of the savings. What is the next target for the savings and how can I be able to deliver that? Now, we have some of these situations where we need to tackle some of the emergency and work with a time horizon, which is in a matter of weeks, a matter of months. And at the same time, we're still contributing to, bring some of these savings and be efficient in terms of organization, where the time horizon is still probably the one of 1 year. But at the same time, there are longer time horizon and any geopolitical risk, we need to be able to have simulations. We need to be able to have a sort of scenarios that help us to make our long-term supply chain more resilient to this. And the key is this one, being able within a week to dedicate some of the days working on short-term time horizon, mid-term time horizon, and from time to time, more longer-term time horizon. More questions. Wow. How do we ensure visibility of the supply chain nowadays? There's a first big element, the quality of your relationship, the quality of the discussion, the quality of the question we pose to people we know. Um, this is really important. Huh? The best source of information is still our suppliers, people we know in the field. Some of our clients who might be also buying the same product, but asking question is still, and relationship is still the very big important point. In some situation, you can also leverage some of the sources of data, market intelligence, business intelligence you can get from your company, but the value, the benefit will vary. But definitely in the future, we'll see more digital twins for supply chain. Some companies have developed some that have been working very well, and they were able during the pandemic to run on a daily basis algorithm that were telling them, the pandemic will be eating your supplier here and there uh, in a few weeks, and then you should be doing something right now on this type of things. Just in time is no more applicable. Well, depends. If you are collocated next to each other, you can still adopt some of the just in time principle. I think, we need to really be clear about when is it the good way to do things and when is it, less helpful. And, whenever we've been talking about just this time, uh, there's really important point about understanding the right volume of inventory. The true spirit of just in time was not to eliminate all of the inventories, but to have the right amount of inventory at the right place, and then to work together with all the players into the game to eliminate all the problems, all the roadblocks, the little Ono picture with the water going down, and then you start to see the rocks and you eliminate this problem by having people involved into this type of development. So a people-driven problem solving that was using inventory as a mean to reveal some of the rocks and being able to destroy them. It's never been purely, at least, my understanding of where I'm coming from. And this was not just purely about being, faster, just in time, less inventories. I think there was something a little bit more advanced in terms of thinking behind it, and human driven. Okay, so don't hesitate to be in touch, to send some topics that we can tackle in the next time. I think you already gave me a lot of ideas, so that's great. I'm gonna have to go now, and wish you a fantastic end of the day, or a fantastic day for many of you. And I look forward to see you in the future joining some of these sessions. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. And yeah, we'll be sharing the recording.